The daily invisible work that's burning out. Parents, and how to share the load. Every single day, parents are doing a full-time job that never gets listed on a resume and never truly ends. Here is the part that stops people in their tracks when they finally hear it out loud. Most parental burnout does not come from the loud, obvious work. It comes from the quiet work no one sees, counts, or thanks. This video is about that invisible daily labor, how it slowly drains energy, patience, and joy, and why sharing the load is not a favor but a necessity for any family that wants to last without resentment. The mental load that never shuts off. From the moment a parent wakes up, the mind is already running scenarios. What needs to happen today? What did not get done yesterday? And what problem is quietly waiting a week from now? This mental load is not tied to physical movement, which is why it is so exhausting. Even sitting still, the brain is organizing, prioritizing, and forecasting. It is remembering which child needs gym shoes, which bill is coming up, which conversation needs to happen with a teacher. This constant awareness becomes background noise that never fades, and over time it trains the mind to stay alert even during moments that should be restful. The hidden planning behind everyday life. Most households look functional on the surface because of planning that happens long before anything is visible. Meals do not appear by accident. Clothes do not magically fit. Appointments do not book themselves. Someone is thinking ahead, sometimes weeks in advance, making sure life flows smoothly. This planning is invisible because its success looks like normalcy. When everything works, it looks easy. When something fails, the effort behind keeping it together suddenly becomes obvious, often followed by frustration rather than appreciation. Decision fatigue and why parents feel mentally drained. Parents make hundreds of small decisions every day, most of them unnoticed. What to cook, what to buy, how to respond, when to intervene, when to step back. None of these decisions are dramatic on their own, but together they wear down mental energy. Decision fatigue builds quietly, leaving parents feeling irritable, foggy, or emotionally flat by the end of the day. This exhaustion is often misread as personal weakness, when it is actually the cost of carrying constant responsibility without relief. Emotional labor inside the home. Beyond logistics, parents manage emotions, both their own and everyone else's. They notice changes in tone, mood, and behavior. They absorb stress so the household can function smoothly. They prepare children emotionally for transitions, setbacks, and disappointments. This emotional labor requires attention, empathy, and regulation, and it rarely gets acknowledged because it leaves no physical result. Yet it is one of the heaviest parts of parenting, especially when one person becomes the emotional anchor for the entire family. Why invisible work is only noticed when it fails. Invisible work has a strange rule. When it is done well, it disappears. When it is missed, it becomes a problem. Forgotten forms, missed events, empty fridges, emotional blow-ups. Suddenly the question becomes what went wrong, instead of who has been preventing this every single day. This dynamic creates a painful cycle where effort is ignored, but mistakes are highlighted. Over time, this leads to frustration and the feeling of being taken for granted. The default parent problem. In many families, one parent becomes the default manager. This person knows the schedules, tracks the needs, anticipates problems, and holds all the information. The other parent may contribute, but often waits for direction. This creates an imbalance where one person carries the mental responsibility while the other assists. Even when both are working hard, the weight is uneven. The default parent rarely gets a true break because the responsibility never leaves their mind. Why help is not the same as shared responsibility. Help implies that one person owns the task and another supports them. Shared responsibility means ownership is equal. When one parent asks what needs to be done, the mental load remains with the other. True sharing happens when both parents independently know what needs attention and act on it. This shift changes the entire dynamic of a household, but it requires awareness, consistency, and patience to build. Making invisible work visible. The first step toward balance is naming the work that usually stays hidden. Talking openly about everything that is being managed mentally can feel uncomfortable. but it transforms vague exhaustion into something concrete. Lists, conversations, and shared systems help move responsibilities out of one person's head and into shared space. Visibility creates understanding, and understanding creates room for change. Ownership instead of task splitting. Dividing chores alone does not solve the problem if one person still manages the thinking. Ownership means one person fully handles an area from planning to execution. This removes the need for reminders and follow-ups. Over time, ownership builds trust and reduces mental strain. It allows both parents to step away mentally because they know things are being handled, not just temporarily covered. Letting go of control and perfection. One of the hardest parts of sharing the load is accepting that things will be done differently. Not worse, just different. Letting go of control can feel risky, especially when one person has been preventing problems for years. But perfection keeps the system stuck. Flexibility allows balance to grow. Equality is not about identical effort. It is about shared responsibility and mutual respect. How sharing the load changes relationships. When invisible work is shared, something shifts emotionally. Resentment softens. Communication improves. Parents feel like partners again instead of managers and assistants. Energy slowly returns because the mental weight is lighter. The household becomes a shared effort instead of a one-person operation, and that change impacts everything from mood to connection. Why this conversation matters. So many parents believe their exhaustion is a personal failure. It is not. It is the result of carrying too much for too long without support. Invisible work deserves recognition, respect, and redistribution. When families acknowledge it and work together to share it, burnout becomes preventable instead of inevitable. How invisible work follows parents even when they are off. One of the most misunderstood parts of invisible work is that it does not stop when physical tasks stop. Even during rest, entertainment, or sleep, the mental tracking continues. Parents lie in bed remembering something they forgot to do, replaying a conversation from earlier, or planning tomorrow before it arrives. Over time, this creates a feeling of always being on call, which slowly drains motivation and emotional resilience, even during moments that are supposed to feel relaxing. Why invisible work impacts identity and self-worth. When a parent spends years doing work that is unseen and unmeasured, it starts to affect how they see themselves. Accomplishments feel smaller because they do not come with visible outcomes or praise. Progress feels unclear because the goal is simply keeping things from falling apart. This can quietly erode confidence and create a sense of stagnation, even though enormous effort is being invested every day. How children absorb the invisible work model. Children learn how life operates by watching who plans, who remembers, and who carries responsibility. When invisible work consistently falls on one parent, children internalize that division as normal. Over time, this shapes expectations about roles, responsibility, and emotional labor. Sharing the load does not just support parents in the present, it teaches children what partnership looks like. If this spoke to you, take a moment to like the video so more people hear this conversation. Share your experience in the comments, because naming invisible work helps others feel less alone. Subscribe for more honest discussions about parenting, relationships, and the unseen effort behind everyday life.